Don't be afraid to try new things. It is actually more than okay to break away from the textbook. It is great to be using technology in the math classroom. Take kids outside, do shape walks. Just outside of the walls of the classroom, there's a lot that's in store for math. So why not explore it? And even if you're afraid, baby steps are still steps, and just don't be afraid to try something new.
I'm so excited to have everybody here. This is the panel to be on, believe me. These are some incredible educators, and I'm so excited to hear from everybody. Alvaro, wow, you do so many cool things. What is your top thing that you'd like to share about innovation?
I think the top thing that we're doing in Compton right now is we're working on expanding our esports program. We are also expanding our robotics program from K-12. So just this past May, we had our first festival there in Compton. We had scholars from K to 12 showcasing their robotics skills. So I think those are the top two things that I could think of top of my head.
Those are amazing, and I hope every school is really thinking about having an esports program if they don't already. Why do you think esports makes your school innovative?
I think esports, it's a kind of like a carrot. You could really entice a lot of different types of students that traditionally wouldn't be involved in extracurricular activities and open up the field of STEM to them. So that's something that we've been seeing, providing social emotional learning as well.
Totally.
And just providing some sort of pathways for them when it comes to STEM. So I think it's exposure, and it's a fun way to get all the students excited about.
Yeah, I love how it just includes more students that wouldn't normally always participate. And so the more that we get our students involved in school, the better they do. And awesome. Well, Hedreich, I love your energy, and I know that you're doing so many amazing things. What are you most looking forward to here at Iste?
Oh, here at Iste, honestly, I'm here for the hugs.
Yes.
You know what? I am fortunate to have a really strong digital PLN with some really inspiring educators that I can crowdsource answers for and solutions from all the time. And we bounce back and forth and share resources. And being able to see a lot of those people who we developed really good relationships, especially during COVID when we were all online a lot.
Right.
And just being able to see folks face to face and really make those connections and solidify those friendships.
Totally. And even for those who are not at Iste, making those connections, we did that this whole last couple of years, and it feels like it's really been so personal. So even though we get to see people in person and it feels amazing, we're all still staying connected, which I think is one of the key pieces to innovating.
Hashtag not at Iste. I mean, this is my first live Iste, but I have always felt a part of the community because of the strong hashtag not at Iste. I love that. So.
Yeah, totally. All right, Victoria, what are you excited about for here at Iste?
Ooh, so this is my first time at Iste where I'm not just here by myself, I'm also here with a company. So I just started at Microsoft 4 months ago, which is really exciting. And I do have some independent sessions, but I'm also doing some stuff in the booth theater, which is awesome. The content room, which is upstairs in room 265. And then I'm also just going to be hanging out with people and talking and hopefully making some new connections.
So out of all of these presentations, which one would you think is the most innovative that people should just definitely pick up?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
I know, because you innovate everything.
One of the sessions that I'm really partial to, well, really all of them though, in our booth theater, there's a lot of really neat content that focuses specifically on innovation. And not only that, but inclusivity and also accessibility. And that's huge right now, because we don't want kids to be left out. We also want to make sure that we're including everybody into the field. And if we have tools that can do that, then why not use them?
Yeah. Are you speaking on the Iste Standards at all?
Okay, so I am. So one of the sessions that I'll be doing with Dr. Eileen Winokur and Melody McAllister is happening tomorrow. It's the Iste DEI and Me. So that's about how we have utilized Iste Standards with diversity, equity, and inclusion work in our schools.
That's amazing.
And then I have another one today with Alicia Sewell, who's hashtag not at Iste, but she will still be in virtually, called Trust Black Women in EdTech. And that's all about being inclusive. Yeah, come. It's going to be a good one.
Wow, that's amazing. All right. Well, Alvaro, it seems like you are on the leading edge of innovation there in Compton. What things are you hoping to bring back from Iste to Compton?
So this is my third Iste, and every single time I learn something new, I make new connections, expand my professional learning network as well. but I'm just here to get some new ideas to bring to our educators in Compton. We are really in the forefront of creating these STEAM innovation labs throughout the district. So we have all these technologies, especially after the pandemic. A lot of school sites did invest heavily in a lot of the technology. So getting some ideas of how we could implement that in the curriculum and support our teachers in innovation.
Awesome. And a lot of times it's an invention or a technology that really drives change. And we've all experienced something that's been a big driver of change. So originally, what really innovated education, the public schools we know it is the school bus. It allowed everybody to be in the same place. And so now we're looking at how do we not be in the same place necessarily and still really connect well with students. Hedreich, do you have any thoughts on what you think the next big innovation is that's going to change what school looks like?
I really think it's not an innovation, but I think COVID really started us to think about how little really fundamental change has happened in education over the last 100 years. And I really think that people are thinking differently about how students learn, about how students can drive their own learning, about what learning is valuable and what learning is not valuable, about what narratives are centered and what narratives are not centered. So all of those things are disrupting the way people think about being in a traditional classroom.
Totally.
And personally, my son spent after COVID, he never went back. I homeschooled him, and that was a great experience for him. He was allowed to see education as something that he enjoyed, as opposed to, he calls it 12 years a slave. He just graduated this year. And a lot of students, are we really serving them? Are they able to realize the kind of learning that they want?
Right.
Or are they just learning what someone else has put value on and said, this is what we're going to test you on, learn this. And so I think that window of opportunity is still here for us.
Awesome. Alvaro, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of things that Hedreich said. And in terms of driving innovation, especially in the classroom in a K-12 atmosphere, we really have to think about what are students' passions. And I think with that, you're able to drive in innovation and really make it impactful for our students. And also, increase that passion on our educators as well.
That's what I hope that we're really doing in schools, is driving passion. And my daughter was somehow roped into doing summer school, and that online program just wasn't what I would say would be driving passion for math. You know who's good at math?
Me.
Victoria.
I'm very good at math.
You are? Well, we're all math people.
Yes.
Key component.
Yes, we are.
So what innovations do you feel would really drive passion in students around math?
Ooh, so that's a very loaded question, and
It
it's got a
was.
lot of answers. So I'm going to definitely give my top three. I think my first thing is that the math applications need to be grounded in actual real world content. So not
Right.
just having questions where it's like, Johnny is building a deck. Okay, right, but if I live in an apartment, I might not have a deck. Where are they getting the materials and the tools from? Like, even just simple things like that can sometimes be just too abstract for students, and not because they can't understand it, but because they can't resonate with it. So in order for math to be applicable, it needs to be grounded in what they're actually doing. The second is, I'm really big on bringing in just innovation through social challenges that were going on with in the world. So I was working with a group of teachers one time, and they were trying to do area perimeter and just coming up with ways to engage sixth grade students. And it was an area that went through a lot of redlining, right? And it was very obvious which communities and which populations lived in certain areas of town. I mean, talk about area perimeter. And then you can get into food deserts. There's a reason why this community might have a Whole Foods and this one doesn't, a Trader Joe's, this one doesn't. And then we get into the economics of it, because Whole Foods and Trader Joe's in particular, they actually base where they put their stores on socioeconomic status. So a certain amount of people in the community need to have above a bachelor's degree or making above a certain income in order for them to be placing things there. So there's a lot of things that we can focus on with math that just opens up their eyes. And then once that happens, then that can promote positive change. And to me, that's innovation. And then my third is just don't be afraid to try new things. It is okay to break away. It is actually more than okay to break away from the textbook. It is great to be using technology in the math classroom. Take kids outside, do shape walks. I mean, just outside of the walls of the classroom, there's a lot that's in store for math. So why not explore it? And even if you're afraid, baby steps are still steps, and just don't be afraid to try something new.
I love this on so many levels, just really bringing in social justice and ways that math connects to their world. I mean, how many students don't see themselves as being in STEM fields? And sometimes it's just because the curriculum is not showing them how it is relevant. Alvaro, how do you feel like using STEM curriculum helps you to innovate?
Yeah, so I think it's driven with PBL and driven along with social justice issues. You can really hone in with the students, again, passion and what is applicable to them. So I think using STEM curriculum is one way to not only expose students to what is out there, but also how they could drive change, positive change for their communities, and eventually, make an impact. And I think that's something that the students don't see much of in terms of what's the typical curriculum that you'll get from a given textbook. And I think that's something that needs to happen with innovation.
Yeah, totally. Hedreich, when we go beyond the textbook, what does that do for our students, and what is the value of a teacher? Wow, that was loaded.
Yeah, that is a loaded question, because when you say go beyond the textbooks, there are so many districts right now that are restricting going beyond the textbooks and going beyond curriculum. So I would say you don't want to, go against your district, but when you open the textbook, read between the lines. What are the things that you can do that are well within the parameters of the curriculum that your district and state laws have said have to happen?
Sure.
And then innovate. And what I really do is I believe in asking questions. I don't need to innovate. I know how to innovate. I can innovate on my own. My students need to innovate. Hey guys, look, we're studying area and perimeter. How can we learn that instead of just doing the word problem? What else can we do after we finish this? And you would be surprised at what kinds of things they come up with. So don't dictate what they're going to do. Just ask questions. Ask.
Yeah, that's a great way to start.
The way that I like to kind of think about that is like the curriculum is not your teaching syllabus. It is your testing syllabus. That is what students are required to kind of look at and learn, and then depending on where you are, get tested on it during certain times. But it doesn't necessarily dictate how you have to teach it. So that's that read between the lines that you were talking about. When you read between the lines, there's a lot of magic that can happen. And a lot of innovation, and that is powerful for students once we unlock that.
Yeah.
I agree. No, I totally agree. And I think, asking those questions to the students, getting their feedback, their input, I think that's what drives innovation in the classroom, definitely.
Yeah, their feedback. They're so much smarter than we are.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, those questions, getting student feedback, going and making those connections, those are all things that you don't get out of the textbook. That is what, as educators, the magic that we bring into the classroom. So, Victoria, what is one of the ways that you really elevate your students?
Ooh, just one.
Okay, give me three.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, because I did 3 last time, so I'll do 3 now. So I really lean heavily into technology, and whenever I work with students and whenever I work with educators. And I was using this before I even started working at Microsoft. But I love the math tools in OneNote. Life-saving for me, where students can ink, they can draw, they can use the artificial intelligence to solve problems. They can even create practice quizzes on their own, and these practice quizzes are graded for them, and it shows the steps on how to solve the problems. I mean, that is just absolutely remarkable for not only elevating their learning, but also that gradual release of responsibility. Right. How many times have I had to bring students to the back of the classroom to practice math facts, and now it's all in OneNote, and they can do it themselves, and they can test, and they can modify. And I think that that's just beautiful. Something else, too, is also bringing in elements of their culture and community into the classroom in authentic ways. So I remember once we did lines, angles, and angle relationships in the community and the world, because I got the textbook and it was all these lame problems, and I'm like, all right, scrap that. And I was also working at a private international boarding school at the time. So we had students that were coming in from Japan, South Africa, Korea, Germany. So I'm like, okay, there are lots of lines, angles, and relationships in, places where you grew up. So why not talk about that? And a lot of them, because I assigned it right before spring break, so they went home. They came back with pictures. We were able to outline everything. I mean, awesome. And then the last, just like Hedreich said, we are listening to their feedback, because it's not just our classroom as educators, it's also their classroom as students. Right. What do they want to learn? How do they want to show it? And also, how can we give them the space to do that?
That's amazing. Hedreich, do you want to piggyback on what she said?
Actually, I love the part when you say listening to feedback. A lot of times we are afraid to turn those things over. And you mentioned fear. I want to just encourage younger teachers to talk about what kinds of things. We talk about class management and culture, class culture. If you set that up in a way that is collaborative, again, it's not just your classroom, it's their classroom. Ask them, hey, what do we need to do to make sure that we can all learn? And work together to say, okay, well, what are we going to do when somebody's not adhering to what we think should be adhered to? And you would be surprised. I really didn't have to do a lot. My kids would go, Alvaro, stop, man. We're supposed to be doing this.
Right.
And when they would say, she's not doing what she's supposed to do, I said, go and talk to her. And just making sure, that's the social emotional SEL learning that we're looking into, that we're really working on. And when you build relationships, not just between you and your students, but between, among them, then they own the learning, they own the classroom, and then you can kind of let them have a lot more freedom. And so you can take them outside and you can ask them when they have feedback, you can say, you can be the yes teacher. I say, when they come up and say, I don't like that project, Ms. Nichols, can I do so and so and so? Oh, tell me how you want to do it. Cool, done. And all of a sudden, you're the cool teacher, not because you let them do whatever, but because they can show their learning however.
Well, you're the cool teacher because you've obviously built up this relationship with them. You mentioned SEL, and for whatever weird reason, that has become like a hot topic of weird. Let's just say that.
SEL
Can you
is
clarify?
SEL is CRT,
right.
hidden.
ABC.
Tell me the question again. I'm sorry, I just saw a headline in front of my face.
To clarify for people who might be watching where they are feeling some pushback on SEL, where you're just saying this is a really important part of your classroom. Why is that such an important part of our innovating of our classroom, and how do we say this isn't something to be afraid of?
Well, gee willikers, what do we teach our kindergarten kids? We teach them, use your kind words. You keep your hands, feet, and objects to yourself. No, I want you to share. I want you to take turns. And then as soon as we get out of that, we get to adulthood and we think that's not cool anymore. So we go after each other on social media platforms. So first I would say, let's just all model what that should look like. If you learned it in kindergarten, continue. We taught how to be good human beings to each other, to our kids in kindergarten. We learned that from our kindergarten teachers. So can we please just do those things? And that's all SEL is.
Yeah,
it's how to be good to one another, because we don't model it. We go after each other on social media. We think that reality TV shows where people are angry and going off on each other, that's become our fodder and our entertainment.
Right.
We believe in only feeding on the worst news that we can possibly feed on, and nobody's pushing back and saying that that's not healthy.
It is not healthy.
So when we start to say that's not healthy, and look at it, if we did it in kindergarten, if we said it in kindergarten, then let's continue. And if we didn't, if we were taught that it was wrong, then let's not.
Right.
And that's SEL in a nutshell.
Yeah. There's something to be said there about the power of consumption and exactly how much our students consume on a regular basis. Not even when they're with us, but when they're at home, when they're with their friends, right? And exactly what you said, it's how are we kind of managing all of this, but also at the same time being a good person at the same time? And to add to what you were saying, it's also really good with SEL. It's about those boundaries, right? So the same way that we are, teaching kindergarten students, hey, don't touch me, right? Like, let's figure out like my personal boundaries in my space. As adults, some people do a very good job of modeling it, but others don't. So that boundary component is also really key with SEL, because that's how we can establish who we are as people, and that's also how we feel empowered to speak up and do things, right? If we're not comfortable, we can say it. If we have challenges with learning something, then we can speak up and we can say it. That self-advocacy is part of it.
Yeah. And to piggyback to what you said, Victoria, I think building relationships with students is key, right? I think that's one of the biggest things of, being a great teacher is building those relationships, having that trust and that open communication. But going to also with SEL, I think if you are intentional of modeling good behavior, but also provide opportunities for students, like for example, for esports, we do a lot of the Minecraft challenges. And for the lower grade students, they get to actually understand, the toxicity of of gaming online is rampant, right? You have a lot of different things that no one talks about it, and esports also allows that conversation and that opportunity for an educator to come in and talk about tilting or raging, where students get really upset and start throwing things at the TV, etc. But I think that's an open opportunity for educators to come in and provide some support.
Oh, totally, I love that. So back to normal. Everyone wants to get back to normal. What do you think about that, Alvaro?
I think we have, I think there is some PTSD after the pandemic, right? A lot of, we just jumped into this remote, emergency remote education, right? And a lot of teachers were stressed, right?
Yeah.
And they were just trying to make it. They're just trying to push lessons out, meet with their students, trying to engage them in a very tough situation. So now, going back into the classroom and figuring out what are some of the best ways that we can continue to engage them with the technology versus them pushing technology away. That's I think a next big challenge for us.
Yeah. Hedreich, a lot of people are like, we want to get rid of the technology. Now that we're back in person, we don't need it. Is there a role for this in innovation? Can we just get rid of it, go back to normal?
Did you want me to address the back to normal phrase, or did you want me to just answer the question?
Back to normal, go for it.
Okay, I am going to stick back to normal. If you look at data since even the 80s, we have not made real gains with all of the testing and No Child Left Behind, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to look at back to normal as not a good idea because it's not working. It has been working for so many people for so long.
Thank you.
That's right.
So having said that, ditching technology, and I'm glad you mentioned the OneNote thing because I am really working hard with our primary team because COVID made it rain Chromebooks, hey! And now it's time to go and help primary school teachers who are very not technology. That they do a lot of paper, a lot of hand. Of course, they're supposed to do hands-on stuff. They should.
Paperless is not a pedagogy.
It is not. But the question is, can you really teach 20, 25, 30, 35 kids and differentiate with all of those kids? There's no way that you can do that without some help. And unless we're suddenly going to get an influx of funding where everybody's going to have like 3 TAs in their classroom, that's just not going to happen. Yeah. And that's the beauty of technology. When we have these EdTech tools that we can use for fluency practice, that we can have this group over here is with me, this group over here is doing stuff with Legos, and this group over here is doing stuff on OneNote or on SD Math or Love SD Math or on Admin Product or any of those things. And that's what you need. You need extra hands. And technology is your answer.
Exactly.
It's your extra hands.
I totally agree with that. Well, I appreciate everyone being here on this panel. You have consistently inspired me and helped me to be a more innovative educator, and I encourage everyone to make sure they're following these fine group of people, and they are people to learn from. They are constantly out there sharing what they do, and I'm just really privileged to be on this panel with you today. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.